A talented person might find themselves constantly procrastinating, avoiding things they know they can do well.
And it's not laziness.
It's often not laziness at all. It's the internal guidance system subtly steering them away from success because it's obeying this hidden internal script of unworthiness or needing to maintain the anger.
That's insidious. Your internal compass is just busted.
It's out of calibration, so you miss chances, you make unforced errors, you sabotage yourself, not because you lack talent, but because your energy is tied up in this internal conflict.
Yeah.
Your focus isn't on the actual target anymore.
So the pilot, he didn't crash because he forgot how to fly. He crashed because the rage was like a stronger magnet, a more powerful unintended target for the system than the runway.
The system obeys the dominant emotional signal. That's the rule. If the image you keep feeding it is conflict, or if the sensors are overloaded with guilt noise, it can't lock on to constructive goals.
It defaults to the loudest noise.
It defaults to maintaining that emotional status quo, even if it's destructive.
Which brings us right back to the fix, forgiveness as signal clarity.
It's the mental reset button. It restores accuracy, wipes away the interference. It lets the inner compass realign and focus only on the positive targets you consciously choose.
Clears the channel.
Clears the channel so the servo mechanism can do its job properly again, without the wobble, without the deviation caused by all that old emotional baggage.
Okay, we've got the system, the servo mechanism. We understand the static. And let's get really practical. Why is holding on to resentment or living with guilt so mechanically bad for you? You mentioned 3 specific ways it messes things up.
Right. This is where we move from analogy to actual measurable cost. Because resentment isn't just bad energy. It's a continuous low-level physical attack on your ability to think clearly.
Okay, first one. Static physically suppresses cognition. It messes with your brain function.
Yeah. Chronic resentment is basically a physiological problem. It keeps your brain's stress response system constantly switched on.
Through the amygdala.
Exactly. The amygdala, that's like the brain's smoke detector, the alarm center. It triggers the fight or flight response.
And the problem is, every time you mentally replay that argument, or fantasize about getting even, or just dwell on how unfair it was,
you're hitting that amygdala alarm button again, and again, and again.
And your body doesn't know the difference between thinking about the threat and the threat actually being there.
Your nervous system treats them the same. It doesn't distinguish between a tiger walking into the room right now and you vividly remembering 5 years later how someone betrayed you. To your body, it's a current threat. Danger now. Defend yourself.
Okay, so living in that constant alarm state, that leads to the hormonal flooding you mentioned.
Yes. Your body gets repeatedly flooded with stress hormones, especially cortisol. And when cortisol is chronically high, you're basically locked in defense mode. Always ready for a fight, always ready to run.
And that's where the thinking problem comes in. Because if I'm in survival mode, my brain isn't prioritizing long-term strategy.
It can't. That's the neurological trade-off. The stress response actively suppresses the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
That's the bit right behind the forehead. The CEO of the brain.
That's the one. It handles all the sophisticated stuff, long-term planning, impulse control, complex decisions, reasoning, emotional regulation, all the high-level executive functions.
So by keeping your body in fight or flight with resentment, you're literally pulling resources away from the smart, rational part of your brain.
And diverting them to the reactive, primitive, defensive parts.
Right.
Blood flow, glucose, oxygen, it all gets rerouted.
So you literally can't think as clearly.
You can't effectively plan that merger, negotiate that contract, perform that delicate surgery, or even just make good daily decisions if your PFC is dampened down. Chronic unforgiveness makes you less strategic, less focused, more impulsive, more reactive. It damages your working memory, your ability to concentrate.
Wow. So the big insight here is forgiveness isn't some fluffy spiritual thing. It's a strategic advantage.
It's a cognitive enhancement tool.
Yeah.
Because it reverses that physiological stress.
It lowers the cortisol.
Allows blood flow back to the PFC, lets your decision-making center operate at full throttle again. You literally upgrade your thinking power just by stopping the replay of old threats. It's basic maintenance for clear thinking.
Okay, so it messes with your brain chemistry.
Yeah.
What's the second major hit? You called it energy drag.
Right. Besides corrupting the system's accuracy, static, just plain, consumes energy. And your energy, mental, emotional, is absolutely finite.
Like a battery.
Exactly like a battery. Maltz called resentment energy drag. It's this constant, quiet drain on your resources. You're spending your time, your attention, your valuable cognitive bandwidth, reliving old fights, nursing old wounds.
And getting zero forward momentum out of it.
None whatsoever. It's motion, but it's motion tethered to an anchor stuck in the past. Think about your brain's focus like a spotlight beam.
Okay.
If, say, 30% of that beam's brightness is permanently aimed backward at some old grievance. That 30% is simply not available to light up the path ahead.
To see the opportunities right in front of me or solve the problem I need to deal with today.
Exactly. It's exhausting, this constant mental bookkeeping of who owes you what, who did what wrong.
Yeah.
It burns fuel relentlessly.
Let's go back to that pilot analogy. The pilot refusing to drop the bomb.
Yeah, it's so potent. His mission is to fly effectively, reach the target, but he's holding on to this massive emotional weight, this symbolic bomb of rage at his CO.
So the plane gets heavier.
Heavier, slower, burns way more fuel, it's less maneuverable. The mission itself gets harder, maybe even impossible, purely because of the emotional load he won't let go of.
So forgiveness then is like hitting the bomb release button.
It's actively choosing to jettison the dead weight. That's the critical act.
And the energy that was being wasted.
The anger, the plotting, the rumination. It's instantly freed up. It converts directly into forward propulsion.
It becomes rocket fuel.
It genuinely becomes rocket fuel because now that energy can be aimed exclusively at your conscious, constructive goals.
That explains so much. You see people who seem to just flow through life, achieving things against the odds.
While others just seem to grind and stay stuck.
The difference is efficiency.
It's often emotional efficiency. The ones moving forward have usually mastered, consciously or unconsciously, the art of emotional release. They're not dragging anchors from 1995.
They understand, maybe implicitly, that every second spent replaying an old hurt is a second not spent building their future.
It's a totally pragmatic calculation, really. Can I afford to keep spending my limited cognitive budget on this ancient grudge? If high performance is the goal, the answer has to be no. Just no.
Okay, cognitive suppression, energy drag. What's the third major way static holds us back? You called it the prison without bars.
Yeah, this is the psychological trap. Because, let's be honest, sometimes holding on to a grudge feels kind of good. In a twisted way.
There's a satisfaction there.
A temporary hit, yeah. It's the cycle of perceived vengeance, or maybe just justification, or your brain actually gets a little dopamine kick when you replay the injustice, and in your mind you win the argument, or you perfect your comeback.
It creates this illusion of control, like you're doing something about it.
An illusion of control, or maybe a fleeting sense of victory. You feel justified in your anger, and feeling justified can be weirdly comforting.
But it's a trap, a self-imposed prison.
Completely. Holding a grudge is like volunteering to lock yourself in a mental cell. You become the inmate, the guard, and the jailer all in one.
Maltz had a story about this too, right? A woman and her ex-husband.
Yeah, a powerful example. This woman refused to forgive her ex-husband for over a decade. She talked about him constantly, every day, reliving the betrayal, feeding her bitterness.
Her whole life revolved around this past hurt.
Her entire identity became wrapped up in being the wronged party. Meanwhile, the ex-husband, he'd moved on years ago. Had a new life, probably barely thought about her.
But she was still orbiting his ghost.
Completely. Her emotional world, her energy, her focus, all still locked to this relationship that was legally and physically over. Her health suffered. She couldn't form new, healthy connections. She was completely stuck, sabotaged by her own refusal to let go.
And the breakthrough came when she finally did the release ritual Maltz suggested.
Yes. And her realization afterwards is it's the absolute core of Maltz's insight. She said, I thought he was holding me back. But it was me.
Wow.
She finally understood that the person she was most effectively punishing all those years was herself. The grudge wasn't hurting him anymore, it was destroying her.
So forgiveness isn't really about the other person at all.
Primarily, no. It's about freeing the operator, freeing you. You're the one serving the sentence. The only way to break free, to recalibrate your guidance system towards new constructive goals, is to unlock that cell door yourself.
The energy drain, the cognitive hit, the self-imprisonment, it all just hammers home why release is an operational necessity, not a moral luxury.
Okay, forgiving others, that's hard enough.
But Maltz found something even tougher, right?
Yeah.
Often the hardest person to forgive is yourself.
Oh, absolutely. This often goes much deeper. It's a more tenacious form of static. So many of Maltz's patients weren't primarily stuck on anger towards others, but on what he called invisible guilt.
Invisible guilt. What does that mean?
It's guilt stemming from personal failures, things they felt responsible for. A business that went under, a marriage that failed, a huge opportunity missed because of a mistake they made.
Things you can't easily blame on someone else.
Exactly. They weren't, criminals, but they carried these immense burdens of past failure, feeling like they had to pay for it forever, like they were fundamentally flawed.
And the subconscious kind of demands that payment.
It seems to, yeah. They become their own inner saboteur. Their core self-image gets defined by the failure. I'm the person whose business failed. I'm the one who messed up that relationship.
And Maltz saw that this self-condemnation wasn't just making them sad. It was actively shutting down the servo-mechanism.
It paralyzes it, yes.
Why, though? Why is guilt potentially even more disabling for that guidance system than anger at someone else?
Because it directly attacks and replaces the goal image. Remember, the servo mechanism needs a clear target, often based on your self-image.
Right.
If your conscious goal is, I want to succeed in my next venture, but your deep internalized self-image is screaming, I'm unworthy of success because I failed before, which command do you think the subconscious obeys?
The deeper, louder one. The negative self-image.
Always. It obeys the destructive self-image. So it will unconsciously sabotage any real chance of success to keep things consistent with that core belief of being flawed or destined to fail.
So if deep down you see yourself as, say, incompetent, your subconscious will subtly engineer situations, make you hesitate, miscues, create bad luck, just to make sure you act incompetently.
That's the inner saboteur operating mechanically. The system is working perfectly fine, but it's locked onto a destructive target, the self-image of unforgiven failure.
Okay, so how do you fix that? You can't just erase the past mistake.
You can't undo history, no. So the goal isn't erasure, it's reframing. It's about transforming guilt into growth, allowing yourself to redeem the error, not deny it.
Redeeming it. How does that work practically?
It means acknowledging the mistake, the pain it caused, maybe learning from it, but crucially, separating the past event from your fundamental worth and future potential.
Accepting that mistakes are part of being human, not a permanent stain.
Exactly. Accepting that perfection is an impossible standard for any human operating system. Progress requires accepting imperfection. Think about that surgeon Maltz worked with.
The one who lost a patient.
Yes, he was crushed by guilt, couldn't operate for years, functionally disabled by self-condemnation.
I mean, that's understandable. How do you forgive yourself for something like that?
Maltz didn't offer easy platitudes. He guided the surgeon through a systematic reframing process. He helped him see that while the outcome was tragic, that one event, however terrible, didn't define his entire identity or negate all his skill or his potential for future good.
He was an event, not his entire being.
Right. And by working through a process of self-forgiveness, which was really about forgiving himself for being human, for not being infallible, he was eventually able to return to his work.
And it changed him.
Profoundly. He didn't just go back to being the same surgeon. Forgiving himself actually made him more compassionate, Maltz observed, maybe even more careful. His hands were steady again because his mind was free from that paralyzing loop of self-blame.
He didn't forget what happened?
He redeemed it. He allowed the painful experience to become a source of wisdom, a driver for greater empathy and competence, instead of letting it remain a shackle.
Maltz had a kind of mantra for this, didn't he? For recalibrating after failure.
Yeah, it's simple but powerful. I did the best I could with what I knew at the time. Now I choose growth.
Acknowledges the past, accepts limitations, pivots to the future.
It's a command to the subconscious. Release the anchor, set a new course.
Okay, so once this internal static, whether it's resentment of others or guilt about ourselves, once it's cleared, the impact on performance should be noticeable, right? This moves from theory to a real competitive edge.
Oh, absolutely. Emotional clarity is like gold, especially in high-stakes situations. Negotiation, leadership, creative problem solving. Anywhere you need clear thinking under pressure.
When the servo mechanism is running clean, the focus is just absolute.
Total focus on the objective reality, not distorted by old emotional filters. That's the ultimate advantage.
Let's talk about the businessman Maltz helped, the one who hated his father. Because that story really shows the direct link between emotional release and, well, concrete results like health and income.
Yeah, this case is classic Maltz. This guy was outwardly successful but inwardly a wreck. Constant tension, crippling migraines, and he kept making these weirdly bad decisions in business deals, almost like self-sabotage.
And Maltz traced it back to the father.
Decades of simmering hatred for his deceased father. It was running like this toxic background program, constantly draining him and clouding his judgment.
So Maltz didn't give him business advice?
No, he went straight for the emotional static. Used that core technique, the unsent letter protocol.
Right, write it all down.
Get all the rage, the pain, the disappointment out onto the page. Catharsis. But then, the crucial step. Write the explicit command for release. I release you. I choose peace. Something definitive like that.
And then destroy it. Burn it.
Burn it, bury it, tear it up. The physical act is key. And notice, the father was dead. He couldn't receive the letter. This proves the entire exercise was aimed at reprogramming the son's subconscious, nobody else's.
And the results were pretty stunning.
Immediate and dramatic. The migraines vanished. His decision-making sharpened right up. His hesitation in deals disappeared, and his business income doubled within a year.
Doubled. just from letting go of the anger.
Why? Because all the mental energy, all the cognitive bandwidth that was tied up fighting that pointless, decades-old battle with his dead father was suddenly released, freed up.
Available for productive use.
The servo mechanism was finally clear to focus purely on business targets, on opportunities, on clear thinking. It proves the hatred wasn't hurting the father, it was literally costing the son his health and his money.
You see this principle in action with really high-level performers, too. Like Warren Buffett in the world of finance. Not exactly known for being sentimental.
Right. Buffett is famously pragmatic about not holding grudges. Think about it. In his world, betrayals happen, deals go sour, partners disappoint. He could be swimming in resentment.
But he chooses not to.
He sees it as a discipline. Emotional clarity is essential for good decisions. His famous quote sums it up perfectly. You can't afford to hate. It's too big a cost to bear.
It's not about being nice. It's about resource management. Purely technical.
Absolutely. If you're making multi-billion-dollar decisions, you need 100% of your cognitive firepower focused on the numbers, the strategy, the risk. If even 10% is diverted to stewing over how someone screwed you over last year,
you're operating at a deficit. You're handicapped.
Buffett treats resentment like a bad investment. Liquidate it immediately. Cut your losses. Don't let it tie up valuable capital, mental capital.
Okay, what about Steve Jobs? His story is incredible. Getting kicked out of Apple, the company he poured his life into, talk about justification for bitterness.
Monumental betrayal. 1985. Devastating. He had every reason to spend years, maybe the rest of his life, consumed by anger at John Scully and the board.
But he didn't stay stuck there.
That experience was incredibly painful, obviously. But crucially, he chose strategic release. And I think the key part wasn't just forgiving the board, but probably forgiving himself too, for the mistakes, the arrogance, whatever role he played in his own downfall.
That's self-forgiveness again, the reset.
That reset allowed him to channel that immense energy, that creative drive, not into revenge, but into building NXT and into acquiring Pixar.
Right. NXT and Pixar happened during his exile.
Exactly. And when Apple bought NXT and he came back a decade later, he was transformed. He wasn't obsessed with getting even with the people who ousted him.
His target had recalibrated.
His target was purely about fulfilling his vision, using technology to change the world. His power on his return came from that laser focus, uncorrupted by old bitterness. If he'd spent those 10 years nursing his rage,
NXT and Pixar wouldn't exist. Apple might not have had its resurgence.
His capacity for visionary leadership would have been crippled. He chose the next target, not the old pain. He wasn't driving looking in the rearview mirror.
And maybe the most profound example, someone who transformed not just a career, but history itself through release. Nelson Mandela.
27 years, in prison under horrific conditions. If anyone on earth had a right to hold on to bitterness, to seek vengeance,
it was him.
Unquestionably. Yet, when he was finally released, when he actually had the power to potentially retaliate against his oppressors, he chose reconciliation. He chose peace.
And his own words about it perfectly capture that self-imprisonment idea we talked about.
He said it so clearly. I knew that if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison.
Even though he was physically free.
That's the core mechanical truth. He understood that physical release meant nothing without mental release. His interactive forgiveness, that monumental choice, it didn't just free him. It cleared his own internal guidance system.
Allowing him to lead with clarity.
Unparalleled clarity and vision. To navigate South Africa towards peace, not plunge it into a cycle of vengeance. It was strategic release on a world historical scale.
Okay, bringing it back down to, daily performance. Athletes. Kobe Bryant comes to mind. That need for instant self-forgiveness after a mistake.
Yes. This is psychological efficiency in real time. Kobe was legendary for his mental toughness, his Mamba mentality, and a huge part of that was understanding that dwelling on a missed shot, a bad pass, a lost game.
It instantly degrades your performance.
Yeah.
Right now, in the next play.
Exactly. His whole philosophy was about immediate reset.
What was his quote? Something like,
you have to forgive yourself fast, otherwise you carry yesterday's game into tomorrow's. It's pure servo-mechanism thinking.
The missile correcting course.
Exactly. An elite performer, a high-functioning system, cannot afford to obsess over a past deviation. The mistake happens, okay, use the data, why did I miss? Incorporate the feedback instantly.
And then immediately release the emotional charge. Let it go.
So that 100% of your focus snaps back to the present moment, the next shot, the next play. Holding on to the error, beating yourself up, that's just structural inefficiency. It slowed you down.
It's not about being soft on yourself. It's about maintaining system accuracy and forward momentum, especially when the pressure's on. Okay, so if forgiveness is this technical thing, this maintenance protocol, then there must be specific tools, right? Actual techniques or rituals Maltz recommended to signal closure to the subconscious.
Yes, and this is where it gets really practical. Maltz understood something key. The subconscious mind, the seat of that servo mechanism, doesn't really grasp abstract concepts like letting go. It responds much better to concrete actions, to symbols.
It doesn't know the difference between a symbol and reality.
Not in the same way the conscious mind does. That's why these rituals work. They're like neurological commands, sending a clear, unequivocal signal to your deep operating system. This is over, the loop is closed, the threat is gone.
Okay, let's break down the most famous one, the unsent letter protocol. What are the exact steps? Because people listening might want to try this.
Right. It's powerful and specific.
Yeah.
Step 1, you actually write the letter, and you don't hold back. You pour out all of it, the pain, the anger, the betrayal, the disappointment, every ugly feeling.
Get it out of your system and onto the page.
Exactly. Externalize it. This stops the subconscious from having to keep carrying that raw emotional charge internally. You're processing it consciously.
Okay, step 1, write it all out. Then what?
Step 2, after you've emptied out all the negative stuff, you have to consciously, deliberately write the command for release. Something explicit like, I release you from this. I choose peace for myself now. This situation is now closed.
You're giving the servo mechanism its new instruction.
Precisely. The new target is peace, is closure. And then step 3, which is absolutely vital.
Physical act.
You must physically destroy the letter, burn it safely, tear it into tiny shreds, bury it. Doesn't matter how, but the physical act of destruction is the key.
Why is that so important? Why not just write it and file it away?
Because that physical destruction is the concrete symbolic signal your subconscious understands. It registers destroyed, gone. It interprets that symbol as reality. The emotional tie is severed, the energy drain stops, the file is closed.
It tells the body essentially stand down, threat neutralized.
That's a great way to put it. It allows the nervous system to finally come out of that chronic alarm state associated with that particular memory or person.
Okay, I get the theory of the symbolic act. But, for someone listening who's dealing with really deep stuff, maybe years of betrayal or hurt, can burning a piece of paper really override all that ingrained neurological wiring? Can we dig into why it works on that deeper level?
That's a really important question. It's not magic, it's neurology. It works because of how memory and emotion are linked in the brain and how the subconscious learns.
Okay.
Like we said, the subconscious doesn't distinguish perfectly between a real event and a vividly imagined or symbolized one. Think about mental rehearsal for athletes. Visualizing success actually builds neural pathways.
Right, they practice in their minds.
This ritual is similar. By writing out the pain, acknowledging the reality of the memory, then consciously declaring release, setting the new intention, and then performing the physical act of destruction, the symbolic closure, you're feeding the subconscious a complete multisensory narrative of completion.
A clean break narrative.
A very clean break. You're essentially giving your emotional system a clear command sequence. Acknowledge threat, neutralize threat, file closed. This provides the concrete ending that the lingering resentment or guilt lacks. It allows the brain to start recategorizing that memory from an active, ongoing threat to a closed historical event.
So it helps rewire the emotional circuit associated with that memory.
Exactly. It shifts it from being this perpetually open, painful loop to being just a memory. Still might be sad, but it doesn't have the same charge, the same power to hijack your system anymore.
Okay, that makes sense. What about visualization? You mentioned that as another tool Maltz used. How does imagery work here?
Visualization taps into that same principle, the mind treating vivid imagination as reality. It's another way to communicate directly with the subconscious. Maltz often had patients picture themselves physically carrying heavy stones.
Literal burdens.
Right. And you mentally label each stone with whatever you're carrying. Betrayal, guilt over that mistake, envy, resentment towards someone, fear of failure.
You really feel the weight. Connects to that energy drag idea.
Absolutely. The stones are the dead weight. You visualize the effort, the strain, how heavy they are. Then comes the release part.
You picture dropping them.
One by one. You visualize yourself dropping each labeled stone into a deep canyon, or watching it sink in a fast-flowing river, or just letting it fall away. You have to really try and feel the physical sensation of relief as each one goes. Feel your hands getting lighter, your back straightening.
Until you're empty-handed.
Until you're completely free of the burdens. And then the final step is crucial. Visualize yourself now. Lighter, faster, freer, maybe rising effortlessly or walking easily.
You're mentally rehearsing the desired state.
You're reprogramming your internal state by experiencing it vividly in your imagination. This helps rewire those emotional circuits towards clarity, towards lightness, toward the feeling you want to have. It's an internal reset.
It's really striking how much these techniques, developed decades ago by Maltz, resonate with modern therapies,
Hmm.
like cognitive behavioral therapy or somatic work.
Absolutely. Modern CBT heavily involves identifying and reframing negative thought patterns, which is similar to Maltz's idea of changing the self-image and correcting error signals.
And somatic therapies.
Somatic therapies focus directly on how the body stores trauma and unresolved emotion, that physical tension, the body keeping the score. They often use movement, breath work, and sometimes symbolic actions to help release that stored energy.
Which sounds a lot like Maltz's emphasis on physical ritual and visualization to signal safety and closure to the body.
Exactly. It all points to the same core truth. Our minds and bodies are deeply interconnected, and we can use conscious techniques involving both thought and symbolic action to communicate with the subconscious and rewire those circuits that keep us stuck in old patterns of pain or resentment. Forgiveness, framed this way, is just a powerful set of tools for doing exactly that.
Wow. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. From the mind as a machine, the servo-mechanism,
And the real physiological damage caused by cortisol from chronic resentment.
and finally landing on these practical, almost neurological tools for release, like the letter and visualization.
And I think our deep dive really confirms Maltz's central enduring message. Forgiveness isn't optional fluff. It's the fundamental maintenance protocol for your mind.
It clears the errors, resets the sensors.
And reestablishes that vital link between what you consciously want, your goals, your intentions, and the immense power of your subconscious to get you there. It's the absolute requirement for sustained, high-level achievement.
And when that static does clear, when you finally drop the stones or burn the letter, and that interference goes away, what does that actually feel like for the person, the operator? What's that sensation of lift?
People often describe it, first and foremost, as just a stopping, a cessation of the internal fight. You suddenly realize how much energy you were spending constantly battling that ghost from the past or wrestling with that guilt.
The internal noise level drops.
Dramatically. And then things start to flow. Decisions become easier, less fraught with second guessing. Your intuition feels sharper, clearer, because that background static from the alarm center is gone.
The things start to align.
Yeah, people often say life begins to align in ways that feel almost effortless, even miraculous sometimes. But it's not magic. It's just that the internal resistance, the self-sabotage, has disappeared. You're finally operating without the brakes on, experiencing flow.
And that restored clarity, that feeling of flow, it leads to a real shift in trajectory, right? Because you start seeing things differently.
Totally. You literally start perceiving reality differently. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, obviously. History is history. But it absolutely rewires your present perception and your future trajectory.
How so?
Because all that energy, all that focus that was previously tied up, filtering everything through the lens of past pain or grievance or self-criticism, it's now available for clear, constructive perception.
You see opportunities you were blind to before.
Exactly. Solutions appear. Connections happen. Possibilities open up that were always there, technically, but were completely invisible to you because your perception was so clouded by the static.
That shift from being tangled up in the past to operating with present clarity, that's really the definition of reclaiming your power, isn't it?
It is. When success seems to come more easily after you've done this work of release, it's not luck, it's calibration.
The system is finally aimed correctly.
The energy that was stuck fighting old battles is now pure, unimpeded thrust, propelling you towards the goals you actually want. It's that moment you choose freedom, operational freedom, over the comfort of being right or justified in your pain.
So, okay, wrapping this up. Here's the final provocative thought for you, the listener, to really chew on after exploring all this with us.
Yeah.
If you feel stuck right now.
Not because you aren't trying, but because there seems to be this invisible drag, this resistance you can't quite pinpoint.
Look inward. Ask yourself, who or what is still living in your head rent-free?
Yeah. What old battles are you still replaying on loop in your mind? What past failures are you still punishing yourself for? Because that's likely where your energy is leaking. That's the static jamming your signal.
And the moment you decide to truly let them go, to perform that act of release, drop that stone, burn that letter,
your internal guidance system can immediately begin to recalibrate, to realign towards now.
You just can't drive effectively looking only in the rearview mirror. You can't fight a battle that ended years ago and expect to move forward today. The past doesn't need to be erased, but it absolutely needs to be released.
So forgive. Not necessarily to forget, but absolutely to focus.
Forgive not because the other person deserves it. Maybe they don't. Forgive because you deserve to fly unimpeded.
It's the ultimate act of self-liberation. It's taking back control of your own operating system. It's precision mental engineering.
It really is rocket fuel.